to Krown Countdown U. My name is Ryan, and his name is Andrew, and we are underway in CIS.
Now, Ryan insisted this week that we start things in the most important place in the whole world, the center of the universe, some say, Ontario, although I argued, because there was a fantastic game that happened in LaBelle Province, but Ryan, you said Ontario, so let's start in Ontario.
Yeah. I'm laying the hammer down on this one. They weren't battling for the Yates last year, but this season could have a very different finish for both the Guelph Griffins and or the Mac Marauders. Kyle Quinlan set the bar pretty high for starting pivots in Hamilton, and this season he's returned to the Mac sideline as QB coach. With the Magic Man back in the fold, could we see a return of that maroon magic? Well, their Copperfield-like quest hit the field on Labor Day. Let's start things out late in this one. We're inside 5 minutes, and Marshall Ferguson tosses up a gem to Max Cameron. That's 33 yards with a deuce to follow, and Ben O'Connor reaching out, he breaks the plane. It's 27 up following the convert. OT we go, and Marshall Ferguson calls his own digit. Mac wins their opener 34-27. Air Marshal Ferguson throws for over 300 yards for 2 touchdowns and a pick. He also runs 5 times for 16 yards and the game-winning scamper. Mac might make a little noise this season. Expect a 2-0 start to the year when they visit Waterloo in Week 2.
Queens took the 6-hour journey southwest to Windsor to joist with the Lancers, and the Gales were striking first. This 3-yard major from Jesse Andrews made it 10-0 Queens early on. They would add a safety and a field goal to make it 15-0, but at the start of the second Q, the Lancers would strike back big time. Austin Kennedy looks to the sideline for Evan Peshonik, and well, this happened.
The 20, the 10, touchdown Lancers!
Boom! Kennedy and Peshonik, boom! That's a 90-yard major. Gales lead cut to 8. Very next series for the Lancers. Give me one more, Mr. Colorman.
Down.
Boom. Lancers trail now by 1. Late in the second Q, the home team would take the lead. Bo Lumley breaks free, and wait for it.
Touchdown Lancers!
Boom. Give it to me 3 times, Mr. Color Guy. Lumley with a gorgeous run. Love the Deion Sanders high kicks into the end zone. Lancers out in front. But not for long. Right before the half, Billy McPhee to Alex Carroll. Queens takes a 1-point lead into the potty break. Second half, and the Lancers come up firing. Kennedy scrambles out of the pocket and airs it out for Peshonik. Oh! No, you didn't, Mr. Cullerman. Lancers retake the lead. Can you believe this game? But wait, there's more. Fourth Q now. McPhee checks down, finds Peter Hannon for the major. Queens back in front, and they didn't let it go. Under 5 to go in the game. McPhee with a beauty of a toss, like a raindrop from the heavens, perfectly placed into Doug Corby's hands. Queens gets a scare from the Lancers, but hang on to take it by 9. The two teams combined for 940 yards of total offense on the day. McPhee goes 17 for 35, tossing for 259 yards and 3 majors, while his counterpart, Austin Kennedy, connected on 26 of 41 passes for 393 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. If this game is any indication of how the OUA season is going to go down, well, hold tight, Ontario. Boom! It's going to be a bumpy ride.
U of T, Laurier, the Varsity Blues opening their 2014 campaign on home turf. Jayhawks come out swinging first, though. It's James Fracas smacking Marcus Arkarakis. That's a 46-yard catch and run, and it makes it 8-blank for the White. Then, following a Toronto safety, Dylan Campbell got his huge day rolling. All those stats to come shortly. Here, though, he goes 74 yards all the way to the painted fake grass, and just like that, it's 17-0 Willie. Right before the end of the Q, Simon Nasser hits Levi Noel. He goes 79 yards. He looks like a young Paul to pass out there, doesn't he? This cuts the lead to 17-7 after 1. Then, James Fracas finds Craig Nyhoff here for his second major of the day. Nyhoff takes it 66 yards all the way to the house. The $5 bills win 53-17. Dylan Campbell with an absolute massive game, 16 rushes for 293 yards along with 2 majors. Meanwhile, Greg Nyhoff played best supporting actor in a drama. He had 5 grabs for 100 yards and a pair of touchdowns of his own.
hosting Carleton, the sophomore Ravens looking for a first win since the program's revival. Quarterback Jesse Mills seals the deal here, plunging into the end zone, putting this one out of reach. Carleton wins its first game since 1998, whipping the Warriors by 19. Mills finished the game connecting on 11 of 22 passes, tossing for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns while also rushing that one in. Javari Bennett was the high man on the ground for the Ravens, rushing for 120 yards on 15 carries.
York visiting Ottawa. First score of the game, GGQB. Derek Wendell tosses up a 4-yard pass to Ian Stewart. Just like that, it's 7-bagel. A few minutes later, Nick Naylor nails this 20-yarder for York. That cut the lead to just 4. It's anyone's ball game. End of the first Q. A little something for the Ottawa faithful. It's a race for the ages. And clearly, Rusty had a few cans of beefarino before the race. He leaves them all in the dust. What a delicious cuisine, built for king and queen. All right, let's get back to the action. Tommy Mack drives in a 5-yard scamper for the Maroon. It's 17-3 for the OGG. Then Vincent Campbell adds a 72-yard punt return. It's actually his second return punt for the Major in this game. Mind you, there was a penalty in the first one, so it didn't count. The long and short of it, the GGs run up the board on the York Lions, 51-7. Derek Wendell was the man for Ottawa. He goes 24 of 26, 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not to mention he ran the ball for 53 yards on 5 attempts. Ottawa looking strong to start the year. We'll find out if it was a fluke next week when they visit Queens.
All right, so I apologize if I insulted anyone from Ontario. I meant no disrespect. You see, I too am from Ontario. As a matter of fact, Thomas Troop from the Acadia Axemen, who you will see in the highlight pack coming up, he went to the same high school as me. Bansing Memorial Marauders, holla! No fans of Big Brother here? We'll get to those Thomas Troop highlights in a moment. First, let's start in the QC, where Calgary was looking to even an old score.
To La Belle Province we go. Calgary and Quebec City for a rematch of last year's Vanier Cup. The Dinos looking for a little sweet revenge against the hometown Rouge et Or. Freshman pivot Hugo Richard under center in replace of Alex Skinner, who missed the game due to suspension, and he's looking good on the opening drive. Christian Normand broke things open with his 55-yard dash. That led to this goal line plunge from Richard. The Red Machine put 7 on the board. However, later in the queue, the Dinos would reply. They picked up a safety to cut the lead to 5. Then, Eric Dulesky, remember him, connects with Jake Hardy. That's a 22-yarder. Dinos take an early lead. Second queue now, and the Rouge et Or regain that lead. Richard, looking like a polished vet, floats a beauty between 2 defenders right to Julian Bailey. That's a 21-yard major. Third queue now, Andrew Buckley under center for the Dinos. In the Laval zone, he connects with Hardy. That's a good chunk of change. And that leads to this 12-yard dash from Mr. Mercer Timmis himself. Calgary takes a 23-17 lead. But this is where it all goes downhill for the Cowtowners. Richard, deep in his own zone, fires over the middle. Benoit Gagnon Brousseau hauls it in, and he gone. BGB takes it to the house. That's a 100-yard score, putting the Red Machine in front for good. Laval would add 11 more points, and they take this one by 12. Richard was quite impressive in his first taste of CIS action. The freshman slinger finished the day connecting on 17 of 26 passes for 272 yards and 2 touches. BGB caught 4 passes, picking up 142 yards, and of course that one major. For Calgary, Brett Blasco and Jake Hardy put in good performances, while Dulesky and Buckley shared the load under center, both putting up good numbers. It's going to be quite interesting to see just who gets the majority of snaps for both of these clubs throughout the season, as both teams are well stocked in the QB position.
Acadia hosting St. Mary's, a little preseason football at Raymond Stadium. San Pedro, California native Jeff Cummins ready for his 11th season as the head honcho in Wolfville. First points on the board belong to Tommy Troop. He scampers in from the 4. It's 7 blank for the red on red. Acadia stacking the barn on defense as well. The Axemen looking sharp heading into the real deal next week. They top St. Mary's 34-5. Nice looking run from Tommy Troop there. John Shaw with some pretty decent numbers heading into his first test next week against Mount Allison. He goes 9 of 13 for 177 yards, along with 2 majors. SMU, meanwhile, starting their 2014 campaign next week, playing host to St. FX.
To Regina we go now. Rams playing host to the G-Bears. Frank McChrystal beginning his farewell season at the Rams helm. Early first cue, Rams missed the field goal, and Andre Webster says, "I'll take that." Fast forward 110 yards, and he's in the Rams end zone. Just like that, it's 7-zip Alberta. Early in the second quarter, Noah Picton launches one up for Mitch Picton. Mitch takes a late lick. The laundry hits the field, as does Mitch. Regina capitalizes on the penalty as Jens Johnson rushes this 3-yarder in for the major. That puts the Rams on the scoreboard. Later in the queue, Ryan Schwartz connects with Adam Zeidel. That's the first of his 2 touchdowns on the day. Alberta takes a 25-13 lead into halftime. But the Rams came out in the second half, guns a-blazing. Cayman Shutter now under center. He tosses this bomb to Mitch Thompson. That's good for an 88-yard tally, and they don't stop there. Regina puts up 27 points in the second half and take the honey right out of the G-Bears' hands. Rams take this one by 12. Shutter in limited action was solid for the Rams, connecting on 9 of 15 passes for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. Thompson with a fine debut for the Rams, hauling in 4 grabs for 134 yards. Ryan Schwartz saw the majority of snaps for Alberta, tossing for 160 yards and 2 majors. But this day was all about Andre Webster, who caught 4 passes for 101 yards. Combined with his 110-yard punt return, Webster finished the game with an incredible 237 all-purpose yards for the G-Bears.
All right, so the action is back from around the CIS, Ryan. The OUA, I gotta say, your part in the highlight pack, not so good. You know, I think actually you might get fired again off the show. See, our producer knows. Look at this list right here, because that's where you can find all the CIS football games happening this weekend on your television set. However, you're not gonna find this guy anywhere near there. You're watching Krown Countdown U.
Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this video without the express written consent of the CIS, Canada West, OUA, RSEQ, and or the AUS is prohibited.
Hey, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time for the panel portion, and I am joined, as always, on the far end of the table by Mr. Jim Mullen. Jim, thanks for joining us. Former Queen's Gale, former UBC T-Bird, Mr. Gord Randall. Gord, to my right, and from Yahoo.ca, and live from the nation's capital, Nate Sager. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to start things out. Which conference has the best quarterbacks? Nate, OUA is 1 week deep. You start.
Yeah, well, I have to live here, so I guess I'll stick by the OUA and say it's got the a great depth and diversity in the quarterback talent in this conference. Obviously, you have to start off with someone who hasn't actually taken his first snap of the season because the team was on the bye. But Western's Will Finch, passed for more than 3,000 yards last year in his second season. Then when you look around the league, there's some real, veteran talent. Austin Kennedy at Windsor, Billy McPhee. We've seen him pull out games in the second half time and again for Queens over the last couple of years. Jesse Mills and Derek Wendell up in the nation's capital at Carleton and Ottawa, who will be going head-to-head in the Panda game in about 2.5 weeks. They both had a training camp visit with the Ottawa Red Blacks, so. And then, I haven't even gotten to Marshall Ferguson from McMaster, who, pulled his team out to a come-from-behind win in week 1, or, Jazz Lindsay, who's now in his 4th year starting with the Guelph Griffins, and, been in the league's Final Four, so to speak, for the last couple of years. So overall, throughout the OUA, there's, a lot of talented QBs that, various, stages in their development.
Let's come back over to this side of the country. Gord.
Well, I'm going to have to go with the Canada West, my most recent conference of work, and the story there is the veteran pivots. You have Jordan Yance coming back, only his second year in the CIS, but he played a couple years of junior ball before that at Manitoba. Drew Burko's in his third year starting at the University of Saskatchewan. You've got one of two experienced quarterbacks at UBC, and the same deal at Calgary, being either Williams or Bocott at UBC or Buckley or Dulesky at Calgary. It's a very deep conference, and I cannot forget Cayman Shutter as well, who I believe actually led that conference in passing yards last year, the transfer from the University of Hawaii, who's an exceptional talent in an air raid offense at Regina. There just isn't really a weak spot, even at Alberta. Ryan Schwartz, they've got some veteran presence under center there as well. So I would have to go with the Canada West, and I expect to see quite a few high-scoring games, particularly those involving the University of Manitoba.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? I think when you're taking a look at the future of quarterbacking in the CIS right now, you have to take a look to Quebec. Yeah, Canada West and the OUA are both very strong across the board right now. But when you take a look at the two Hugos, one of them in Laval with Richard, who looked fantastic in that exhibition game, and then Henderson in Montreal, who might find a way to work his way into the lineup in a pass-oriented offense that Danny Machocha puts together. And, of course, Jeremy Doyon-Rock can really light it up. The key for him in Sherbrooke this year is whether or not he gets protection in front of him. He was rushed way too much last year to get on the rails and get into his game. So I expect a big year from Jeremy Rock, and it's going to be interesting to see the two Hugos at work this year.
Absolutely. Now let's switch things up a little bit. Let's look towards this coming week. Nate, what is your game of the week?
Well, I have to look a little east of here and look at Laval and Montreal. Obviously, some questions around the Rouge, or more so than usual. They've graduated some playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Pascal Lochard, Guillaume Roux, no longer in red and gold, and of course Alex Skinner still has to sit on suspension. So it's Hugo Richard under the center this week. Defensively, Glenn Constantine said it's a young defense, so yeah, there might be some potential holes in that lineup. But at the same time, Montreal, they've lost a lot of guys too as well. So just going to be interesting to see where they match up. I mean, you sort of have to look at the Montreal rivalry almost like a derby in soccer, because they basically play each other every year, home and away, plus a potential rubber match. Sometimes it becomes in the Dunsmore Cup. But overall, Laval Montreal is kind of the shoe-in for the most compelling matchup this week across the country, in my mind.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. I do want to mention before we move over to Gord with the next game of the week, Montreal-Laval, you're not going to find it in your TV listings for our viewers across the country, but you can find it. Radio Canada will be streaming it online. Gord, your game of the week.
Well, not a lot of interesting matchups in the OUA this week, so I'm going to come back out west, and we've got the University of Manitoba visiting Saskatchewan. These teams split the season series last year and then had a thrilling last-minute playoff game in Manitoba in the first round of the playoffs, highlighted by a blocked kick on the last play of the game. And I think that this game is going to come down to, I've got Manitoba on the road, and I think the key matchup is going to be that young Saskatchewan offensive line. They lost at least two starters on the offensive line. They only have the one fifth-year guy in Leung. And versus the Manitoba defensive line, returning 3 of 4 starters. Evan Gill was a first-round pick this year. He's back. David Onyemata, their nose tackle, is going to be a big breakout guy this year. He's a big body, very strong. And Lauren Croker's back at defensive end. So I expect that those three in particular are going to be a real hassle for Drew Burko and the Saskatchewan offense. And it'll be interesting to see if they can overcome that. But I have Manitoba taking that one on the road.
Well, while they're busy giving up 12 safeties in the Laval-Montreal game, I'm going to go with Gord on this one, simply because the Manitoba-Saskatchewan game, when you take a look at the pattern between these two teams over the last 2 years, their games have been collectively decided by an average of 2.5 points per game. Last year, 3 games that all came down to the last minute. In some cases, the very last play. It's been thrilling football to watch between these two teams, and lots of offense on the field. If you've got tired of the lack of offense in the CFL, I suggest that you tune into Shaw on Friday night if you're in Western Canada and catch this game, because it should be an offensive explosion.
And as for Laval, Montreal, what have we set the over-under on for safeties?
5.
5? We're going with 5? A little low to start the year. We'll get into it as we go, though. A dark cloud that's been kind of hovering over the CIS the last few weeks has been that of drug testing. Jim, you have some interesting thoughts on this. We're going to start things out with you.
Well, there is a comprehensive plan that the CIS has put together. Funding has been an issue over the last few years for drug testing across the CIS and in the 4 conferences. The number of tests are down to about 200 over the year, and the focus is over to Olympic sports. But for the football schools in the CIS, they will be paying more money to the CIS office in this coming year and the year after to increase drug testing. That is something that was not reported in Rick Westhead's story on tsn.ca, and I think that's something that was missing from the mix. The other thing that I think that was missing from the whole reporting of what was going on with drug testing and the CIS is the missing element in this, which is the CFL. The CFL does not recognize suspensions from the CIS. I want to know why they don't recognize suspension from the CIS. At the same time, they recognize suspensions from the NFL. It's a double standard. And I'd like to see TSN start to report on this, but I'm not so sure that they will because they have a client relationship with the CFL, and I think that colors their reporting.
And a very different perspective. I want to get the players' outlook on this. I mean, you've been there, you've been in the locker room. What's usually the procedure, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, in 5-6 years kicking around the CIS, I never once had to take a test myself, which is enough of a statistic as you may need to talk about this issue.
It's all natural talent with you.
Yeah, always was, apparently, or lack thereof. But I came into a UBC program that was a year removed from having a major player test positive in the program, and certainly was a noticeable amount of testing there, just simply because they were under a little bit of extra scrutiny. But I mean, to be honest, you're still talking maybe 10% of the team, and it just isn't enough. I mean, that's. If you look at the statistics, you'd think that probably maybe 1 in 20 would be my guess of guys that are using something they probably shouldn't be. If you're only testing 10% of the team, your chances of catching them are slim to none. And I'm not a math major, but I know that's pretty close to nothing.
Just for some disclosure here, when I was working with the 2011 Vanier Cup, when there were more tests being done in that specific game, when we set up doping control, there were 6 tests, 3 on each side, 3 for each team. So is that enough? I'm not so sure. Maybe what Brian Towers did in Saskatchewan is enough. When you see a problem, you test the whole team.
Yeah, and that 3 a team is, I mean, it's still thin. Like you said, 3 a team, that's next to nothing. And I remember they would come into our post-game scrums, or they'd come into training camp often. They'd pick 3 random guys off the roster. Half the time, 2 of the 3, if not all 3 of them, were practice squad guys anyway. I mean, it just, there needs to be a better system, and I just don't know that there's an easy solution to it. But you alluded to what Brian Towers has done in Saskatchewan, and I think that it's a big first step, hopefully in the right direction. I think that schools need to take more of an ownership themselves on this issue. They have someone test positive for a drug violation. It's a huge black mark on the school. And you'd think that individual schools would have a vested interest in supporting this issue, into putting some funding into making sure their athletes that they put out there representing their school are clean. Hopefully, the University of Saskatchewan football program, for those of you who don't know, I guess they've tested their entire team this spring under the direction of Coach Torres, and hopefully that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. With Yahoo.ca, Nate, how would you attack something like this?
Well, I think Jim and Gord have both each hit the nail on the head at various points. Unfortunately, I read the Westhead story, thought there were some holes in it, or just some bits of context that were a little bit lacking, and namely the fact that it's maybe not so much a drug problem as a money problem. There just isn't enough funds, and the thought that kept running through my head was like, okay, this is university football kind of gets treated as small potatoes, except when it comes to its drug testing. was the kind of the way I looked at it. But I think, unfortunately, the position that they end up being in is one that ends up being reactive, and which is, i.e., something happens, okay, we want to make sure that this isn't sort of a pervasive problem. the quote from Brian Torres that I kept coming back to was, well, you could have something with 85 football players, but you could have the same thing show up with 85 students. It's a societal thing, but I think there's obviously a higher standard to aspire to when you're talking about university student athletes and people representing the university. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to do it after something happens.
All right, 30 seconds each or so. We got to wrap things up here. Quick hits, something you want to get out there before the show wraps. Jim Mullen.
What I'd like to get out there is that Sportsnet U needs to be more of a partner to the CIS. When we went to the Sportsnet U website after the first day of competition was complete in the OUA, the two things that we could find on there were a 12-day-old story about the Ottawa U hockey team and the 2013 schedule. You have to do a better job than that.
Gord Randall.
I want to give a quick shout out to both my alma maters, UBC and Queens, ranked in the top 10, number 7 and number 9 respectively. That would be the first time that's happened in a preseason poll since I was still in high school. So good luck to those guys. And my other quick point, I want to give a quick shout out to Carleton for the first victory in their revamped program's history. I'm sure James Duthie is sitting there in Toronto very happy about that result.
All right, Nate, take us home.
I'll save mine for Dylan Campbell from the Laurier Golden Hawks, going for a school record 293 yards in a week one. This is an entertaining running back that everybody should follow, and what a way to start off the season for Laurier after they were sort of the gang that couldn't shoot straight for the past 2 years.
All right, there you go. That should do it for the panel. That'll do it for all of us here at Krown Countdown U. For Jim Mullen and Nate Sager joining us live from Ottawa on Yahoo.ca, and Gord Randall. And Gord, we should mention, you're new to the show. You never got tested before. This is how we do things. Fill her up.
Oh, boy.
I'm Ryan Sullivan for Andrew Wadden as well. We'll see you next week. Here's your CIS Top 10.
Number 10, Saskatchewan Huskies. Number 9, Queens Gales. Number 8, Guelph Griffins. Number 7, UBC Thunderbirds. Number 6, Manitoba Bisons. Number 5, McMaster Marauders. Number 4, Montreal Carabins. Number 3, Western Mustangs. Number 2, Calgary Dinos. And number 1, the Laval Rouge et Or. Thanks for watching Krown Countdown U. Now, let's get out to the game.